Good morning, everybody. I'd like to call this session of the Board of Revision to order. And I'd like to begin by acknowledging that we are in Treaty 1 territory, the home and traditional lands of the Anishinaabe, Ojibwe, Innu, Cree, and Dakota peoples, and the national homeland of the Red River Métis. Our drinking water comes from Shoal Lake 41st Nation, Treaty 3 territory. With me today is Diane Knight and Ian Mann. My name is Harvey Diamond. The City Assessment Department is represented by Marina Tenawara, and our hearing secretary is Stephen Lund. We'll be hearing application revision of the assessment rules in accordance with the Municipal Assessment Act. The matters for which revision is requested have been described in each application, and we will limit discussion to those matters. The statements that are made at this hearing are sworn testimony, and anyone speaking to such matters must be sworn in. Be advised that comparisons of assessments of properties are not considered as evidence by the Board of Revision. The Board of Revision is appointed annually by Council and City Administration. It makes its decision on the basis of the evidence provided at the hearing and issues a written order that we mail to all parties as soon as possible. Please note that the Board's decisions with respect to an application may be appealed to the Manitoba Municipal Board if the matter pertains to assessed value or classification, or to the Court of King's Bench if the matter pertains to the application for exemption from taxation. Should a party wish to appeal, information how to do so included with the Board's order. With respect to the hearing process, I will confirm the points of appeal with your property to be addressed to each applicant following the swearing in. We will then have the assessor's testimony followed by questions, and the applicant may have, and then the applicant's testimony followed by any questions. Each side will be given an opportunity to summarize the wish to do so. Most of the evidence upon application will be brought forward. The applicant may leave. The person will repeat for each item on the docket today, and the session will close after all the questions have been heard. The Board will deliver it in private and makes decisions, and you receive the Board's order, decision by written mail, as soon as possible. As information, all public hearings are live streamed, recorded, and will form part of a public record. We'll be hearing items 1 and 3 through 8 today. And Mr. Lund, you can swear in the applicant of the first matter and the assessor.
Madam Assessor, please stand. Please state your full name.
Marina Tenawara.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you. You may be seated and start with the applicant.
Yes, I'll be the witness, and Justin Johnson is the advocate here.
Okay, if you're sitting up there, I'll swear you in anyway. So please state your full name. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. You may be seated.
I won't be providing any evidence.
Okay,
So
if you'll be sitting at the table, I will need to swear you in just in case you do.
I can't. Legally, I can't. I'm licensed by the Law Society of Ontario. I can't be sworn in as well.
Well, to appear in our board, everybody who participates, whether they're giving evidence or not, is sworn in. And if you want to participate in this hearing, you're going to have to swear. You're going to have to swear.
As a licensed advocate, I can't swear to give evidence. I'm not giving evidence.
You can swear that the evidence you may give will be the truth, because when asking questions, it could be that questions could be considered as evidence. And we're going to require you to be sworn in, or else we won't let you participate. You can affirm.
I will affirm, yes.
Please state your full name.
My full name is Justin Sidney Johnson.
Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do affirm.
Thank you. You may be seated.
Okay, so the first matter on Regent is 1519 Regent Avenue West. And Senator, when you're ready, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Property address 1519 Regent Avenue West. This is the owner-occupied property, occupied by Canadian Tire. Property owner Canadian Tire Corporation Limited. This property is originally assessed for 18,867,000. This is a retail warehouse built in 1986 originally, and It has some additions until 1999. We use effective age as the 1999. Wall height is 23 feet, and this is the masonry bearing wall as per our records. Plan area is 1,381 square feet. This property right now under municipal board appeal for 2018. 2018 value is 19,616,000. It is under pending appeal for municipal board. Page number 2, you will see the pictures of the property. It's built as a retail warehouse. It's a design built to the Canadian Tire. It's used for Canadian Tire. It has a retail warehouse component at the auto repair shop. And also this building has the mezzanine storage. Those are we not consider as a accessible area because it's a mezzanine built by as a fixture, but it is a mezzanine used for the storage. I don't have a picture of these ones. I forget to include. So it has a mezzanine, and agent and me inspect this property, I think 2 last cycle or 1 cycle before. Page number 4, you will see the rent comparables. My rent comparables are retail warehouses. First rent comparable is Lowe's. Second rent comparable is Verona. Third one is a Brick. Fourth one is the Canadian Tire. And last one is the Canadian Tire also. These leases vary $12 to $17.50. The highest lease rate we found for the Canadian Tire is $17.50, which is the St. James, 750 St. James location. And also I include the gas rent comparables. Comparable 5 is the most comparable to the gas kiosk in here, but it's you can see the range. It's vary $59 to $188 per square feet. Today, my original valuation calculated using $12.30 per square feet for the retail warehouse portion. That is very much for the comparable, last comparable, 2305 McPhillips Street. It is Canadian Tire. It's that lease signed in 2013. But this cycle we use $12.30 as a fair market rent for the Canadian Tire, and $10.43 is used for the mezzanine. This mezzanine used for office use only. It has the staff room, it has lunch rooms and washrooms and everything included. This is the office mezzanine for the Canadian Tire. We use $10.43 that mezzanine, and all the parameters are model driven. Cap rate is 6.5 and shortfall is $6.50. And expenses ratio is 3%. Gas kiosk, we use $87.74 per square feet because this is a bigger leasable area in gas kiosk. And $290,000 is for the additional building value. Those are for tanks and underground tanks and those ones. Cap rate for gas kiosk is 4.95, all model driven. You can see this is the owner-occupied property. Income expenses mailer confirm it's the owner-occupied. I have attached previous municipal board agreements to show. We use a range of rents for $12.25 to $11 per square feet. Those all are municipal board appeals, municipal board orders based on the closing COA. If you go, because my apology, it doesn't have a page number. First municipal board order showing $12.25. We use for Home Depot. Cycle is 2014. And second municipal board order.
I just want to get to that page, sorry.
Sorry.
Just trying to find that page you were talking about. Which one is that?
My apology. It doesn't have the page number.
Yeah, I just
I'm
want,
going to do the first municipal board order.
Home Depot here, okay,
Yeah.
it is here.
1465 Coniston Boulevard, which is for Home Depot. It is for 2014. Yeah, it is 2016 appeal based on 2014 market value. The second municipal board order for 720 St. James Street. It is 2016 value based on 2014 market rates. We use $15.77, which is model driven, even though they at that time they are paying $16.50. The third municipal board order is a 1576 Region Avenue, which is 2014 board year based on 2012 April 1st market value. We use $9.50. I include those board orders. I'm not going to go through everything. I include those board orders to show our market rents for retail warehouses range between $11, $9, and those all are very old municipal board orders based on 2014 market year. I believe based on the best comparable, $12 per square feet based on the Max Phillip Street. That's the both parties are very informed people, negotiated and lease, signed the lease for $12. Based on that older lease, $12.30 for this cycle is fair market rents we have used to came up with value. I'm asking to confirm the value as $18,867,000 for 1519 Region Avenue, West property. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. If you have any questions to ask the assessor now, you can ask them now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Madam Assessor, is your rate per square foot, is it a model driven number?
$12.30. I believe this is an override based on the review, percentage review, because we agreed to $12 in 2020. Most of the Canadian Tires, very big example is the 1711 Keniston Municipal Board negotiations. We agreed to $12 per Keniston. Based on those ones, I believe I override this $12.30 in this property.
Okay, so the $12.30 isn't driven through your model, it's an override?
Actually, model driven range is $13 something.
Okay, so it's an override.
Yeah, I came down for the $12.30 because I believe the model driven numbers are higher than what we agreed to 2020, based on 2020 value.
I think looking at all the municipal board decisions here, I think your model driven rents are actually quite high all the time, every year it seems.
Yes, I agree.
What evidence are you using to support your $12.30?
Comparable.
So these comparables, is it a median? Is it an average?
We usually don't go with the medium average, because if you add these ones, medium might be average, might be higher. Average might be higher because we have outliers. 1750 is outlier. It's a higher rent they Canadian Tire use, and 12 is a very between, and we have $10. And we usually don't go. We pick the best comparable because the characteristics, both are Canadian tires. The Canadian tires has the very unique features like the mezzanine. None of the retail warehouse in Winnipeg does not have the mezzanine storage. Only the Canadian tire has it. As I believe, I inspected most of the Walmarts. Every Canadian tire has big mezzanine space. One of the cycle we decided to remove that mezzanine because of the way it constructed from the visible area. Before that, we have all the mezzanine also assessed. So for the uniqueness, my best comparables is 750 St. James and Black Phillips, but I'm not going that far to our $17.50. I think $12 is fair, and it's an older lease. And I think based on that, and based on last cycle, what we decide for municipal board, $12.30 is very fair.
And this lease for the McPhillips property at $12, is this a negotiated lease or is this a step up from their original one?
Based on the property owner, they are very informed investors. It is well negotiated. I believe so. I don't have any evidence to show. I believe based on how informed they are.
So you don't know if this is a step up value or if this is it's not the net effective rent, is it?
I think this is a net effective rent. This is not the step up.
Do you have any
if
evidence?
You go to rebuttal evidence, I think I attached that income expenses later copy here. You probably can see in my rebuttal evidence. When it comes to
I didn't get a copy of your rebuttal evidence.
Yeah, because Mr. Chair, they want to know about the lease information for 2305 McPhillips. For any other reason, I include that page in my rebuttal evidence. If you are okay, I'm okay. They can.
Ordinarily, we do rebuttal after the hearing, but I'll let you ask that question when rebuttal is presented. I don't want to mix things up here.
Okay, we didn't actually get any rebuttal evidence from the assessor.
No, well, rebuttal evidence only comes in and after if there's something to rebut. It's prepared.
Okay. Yep, perfect. Thank you. I'm unaware of your guys' process.
Yeah, that's fine.
My first time practicing here. So essentially, you're saying that the 12, even though it's not market driven and there's no leases to actually base.
It's based on $12. My conclusion, $12.50 is fair based on the comparable, because you can see the comparables. Because I don't know, we can tell it's average or medium, but the common fact is it's the best comparable, which is the $12 per square feet. It's an older lease. Then we can adjust it to effect on the market for this cycle, which is April 2021. I believe it's $12.30.
So you're saying in 3 years from the lease end date of October 2018, the market's only shifted 30 cents?
It should shift it higher, but this is a pandemic cycle. Then we don't want to go. That's why I don't use the $13 something on the market-driven model rents. I override for downwards to make it fair for the pandemic cycle.
But there's actually no leases here that were actually signed anywhere close to the valuation date, right?
No, we don't have. Then we have Planet Road, which is July 12, 2016, which is $13.02.
Closer than 2013, but as an assessor, if you don't have market evidence to derive a proper income approach, wouldn't you utilize the cost approach to value a property?
No. In Winnipeg, we don't.
even though you don't have any evidence to support your
We
market
don't.
value?
Because we based on what we agreed to the municipal board, we have municipal board orders and we agree. And based on, we don't use the cost approach here still. It could be in the future. Right now, we don't use the cost approach for the retail warehouse. Because we came to the conclusion about using the market evidence, what we have in the, what we have right now.
But there is no market evidence. That's
But
what I'm saying.
but we can adjust it accordingly. 2016 and 20. You can see those are the leases available in market. If we try to find the 2020 lease, we won't find it. We can find the smaller area because those are large areas, and most of the retail warehouse in Winnipeg are all occupied. And agent and us, we all know about the most of the Home Depots are unoccupied, Canadian Tires are unoccupied, Walmarts are unoccupied. How we find the market evidence? Then we have to find based on the evidence exists to us. But right now we don't use the cost approach in anything.
You brought up a pretty good point about the bigger box stores being owner occupied, but the ones that did, or the ones that were available, so to speak, like the Zellers or I think it was the Sears or whatnot, these buildings that were bigger box stores are now being demalled, right? They're being severed and reapportioned to smallers because there isn't a market in Winnipeg for those bigger boxes. Is that not it?
Okay, I can answer this way. None of the retail warehouses are vacant right now, except the one retail warehouse is vacant as a business decision. It is in the key vacant. They don't want to release it out for anyone because they don't want someone else to move in that building. Other than all the retail warehouses are occupied. It might demise for the smaller units. It might redevelop as a different property, but none of the retail warehouses are vacant in Winnipeg. That's all I know. That means it has a market. If this Canadian Tire goes vacant in few years, they will find some other way to occupy this one. As no example to show here, to those retail warehouses are waiting to get occupied.
Okay, I just want to go back to something that you just said about you don't utilize the cost approach, but it looks like you've utilized the cost approach to create an additional building value on the kiosk, even though I'm not arguing with the value on the kiosk.
But it is a different thing because that additional building value for the underground tanks. No any other way to use the underground tank for income approach. We have to use the cost approach.
Yeah. Okay, but you do utilize a cost approach on properties here in Winnipeg.
But if no any other way, we use the cost approach. I don't know how to answer this question. But it's underground tank cost approach, and you use additional value.
I understand that. I totally get it. I'm just trying to make a point that you do utilize the cost approach in Winnipeg. I don't have any further questions. I just want to lean over to my friend, Mr. Nishibaka now. And I don't think he has any other questions either. So thank you very much, Madam Assessor, and thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Mann, do you have any questions?
I do with respect to the gas kiosk and the rental rates. I see at page 4 of your report, you have the gas station ad site rent comparables set there, ranging between $59.52 and $188.57. The rent ascribed to this is $87.74 a square foot. Was that derived from the comparables at page 4, or was that
it's
derived?
not. It is a model driven.
Okay.
Those are the comparables. When we try to find the comparables, those are the comparables. This 87 cents not only come from those comparables, it comes from the bigger list of comparables. Those are the close proximity to this location. That's why I selected these comparables.
And then I'm just looking now at page 28 of your report, or at least it's page 28 on my computerized numbering system.
Okay,
You have the gas kiosk there with the overall blended rate of $64.79.
yes, it's the older,
That's an old municipal
yes,
board
old
decision.
municipal road, because the model rates always change with that year data.
Okay,
Yeah, so, and also it's older,
it's older, okay.
yeah.
Okay, thank you very much. I was just trying to get the rental rates for that particular aspect of the property. Thank you.
Thank you.
And I've got a question. How is the 4.95% cap rate derived for the gas kiosk?
It's a model driven cap rate. I think all the, this year, all the gas kiosk cap rate went significantly lower. I did not override the cap rate for gas kiosks here. That's the model driven cap rate.
That's
So
the only,
based on the data entered in the system, based on the review we have done, gas kiosk cap rates went down.
okay. There's no evidence before us though to give credence to the fact that you've given it that value. We don't have any evidence. You've got no evidence to support that.
For the gas kiosk cap rate, I don't include any evidence here to support the 6.7.
The second question is on the mezzanine. I see you have a $10.43 rate. And how was that established?
Can you ask the question again?
How did you arrive at the $10.43?
It is the model driven. It is a model
Okay,
driven rate.
because in most cases I've seen in the past, when there is mezzanines, they're usually at half the rate of the main floor space.
Yes, but
So-
this mezzanine used for the solely used as an office space. This has a washroom and lunchroom, staff room. It's totally a staff room for the staff. We use the average tenant location quality. That's why we use $10.43. Sometimes it's, we use the fair model rates. Then it goes to a little bit lower than that.
So if it was used for just storage, it would be probably more like $6.15.
And the most of the mezzanine doesn't have water or does not have the washroom. But this mezzanine has the water running and washrooms are running and air conditioning.
Okay, so it's office space rather than
Yeah,
storage
it's an
space.
office space.
Okay, those are my questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, gentlemen, you can now provide your evidence.
Just a quick question on process. I have some rebuttal evidence to her presentation. You should present it this time or give.
I think that you can give a copy to our secretary and a copy to the assessor, and we'll. Oh, okay. At least we did.
Stephen, did you send that to me?
We'll take a quick recess to do that when the time comes.
Okay.
Well, are you going to be dealing with your rebuttal first, or are you going to be using your main evidence first?
You do use your main evidence first.
Yeah, I'll do the main evidence first and then work towards the rebuttal.
Okay, so what we'll do
Why don't
then
we
is
that?
after you say the main evidence, sort of breaks the back end stand, okay?
Okay, absolutely.
Okay, so go ahead with your evidence now.
So, this Canadian Tire store we talked about, and the difficulty we have with the Canadian Tire store or any of the large box retailers is lack of current market rents. We had some current market rents. The assessor and I could argue and figure out what, how to make adjustments to it and come up with a reasonable explanation of what the current market rents are. But we don't have any current market rents. And so what I've done, and in my report is, and according to appraisal theory, I've looked at trying to come up with an income approach and also doing a check on the income approach. And you need to do a check on the income approach, especially when you're evidence, your market rent evidence is very little. And so we looked at the cost approach as a backup to the income approach. And say that way we can say if they're coming in fairly close, then that seems reasonable. If they're coming in very far apart, then there must be some error somewhere. Is it error in our income or is it an error in our cost? And those things need to be looked at more carefully. So a lot of information in my report here, but I'll just bring you quickly to page 19 on the report. And that's the numbered page 19. I'm not sure what the electronic page number is on that. And just looking at the overall market for...
Sorry, what page is that on the electronic one?
That's, on the electronic report. It's a page here. It says status of vacated Sears stores in the middle of the page. And there's two charts right there.
Second.
I'm just not sure.
I'm sure page we have, because your 19 on we have is different.
Yeah, it might be a different number.
Well, you're talking about the Sears departure impact on the regional mall vacancy? That page?
Nope.
Before or after that?
Yeah, that would be before that. That's the vacancy issue. Sorry. Sears, to the next page.
Okay.
So it looks like we're one page off from the electronic. Is that your electronic page 20?
So you're talking about where you start goes Target, then Sears existed in exit in 2018. That's page 18.
I'm specifically referring to the two charts on page 19.
Okay, I got it now. The status of Sears stores in 2021.
Yes. What electronic page number is that for you?
It is 19. Sorry,
19.
I thought we were talking about verbiage.
Yeah, no, that's fine. That I will make that note that we're on the same page, electronic and printed, and we should be good going forward.
Yeah, thank you.
There we go. So this is just really a summary of all the verbiage in a chart format.
Okay.
So it's easier to look at, and we can see that all the Sears locations were large format stores, and pretty much they were all redeveloped as mentioned by the assessor, but they're all redeveloped into smaller stores. So the large format was not continued and it was shrunk down to smaller stores. So Polo Park, the EQ3 was a 44,000 square foot store and a bunch of other stores. The Marshalls and HomeSense and other 60,000 square foot store. The Sears and Region then broken down to a Save-On Foods and a Cineplex, again broken up into smaller stores, and the Garden City Shopping Center broken up into Seafood City, Michael's, etc. Again, broken up into the smaller stores. We look at the old Target stores, and they were broken up as well, other than the Southdale Center one, which was taken over by Walmart. But the other stores, again, they started off as large format retail stores, and they were shrunken up into smaller size. Even where the 1080 Grants, where a Canadian Tire store moved in, they didn't take up the whole 116,000 square feet. They took up a smaller location. So there's a Good Life Fitness and a Canadian Tire in that location. So just to get you an overall view that the demand for these large format stores in Winnipeg is not that great. They're in the process of breaking them down into smaller stores. So I've done a full-on cost approach using the Marshall's Swift here, and that is starting on page 31, and we talk about replacement cost new, less depreciation. I've got the Marshall and Swift backup in there as well. On page electronic copy of 38 is our costing of the store new versus the using the 1999 effective year and the depreciated rate. We did a cross check to make sure that the Marshall and Swift cost does match up with actual costs through a study as well. We did a land value analysis, and at the very end, we come up with our total conclusion of using the cost approach on page 46. And we come up with a value of $10,815,000 on the cost approach. So then we went to the income approach and said, let's see what the current rents are. And if we go to page 51, we have a summary of the rents that we looked at to derive our rental value. And here's where we've got some differences from the assessor's analysis. And two of the comparables that the assessor is using on their page 4 are listed here on my chart on 51, but they're actually, the detailed analysis of how we got there is on page 66. So let me just get you to page 66. This is a 720 St. James Canadian Tire store. And on the assessor's report, they said it was a lease in 2011. Actually, the 2011 rate is just the step-up rate. This was, excuse me. This was originally a lease in 2000.
Sorry, is it 720 St. James or 750 St. James?
They're both the same. Sorry.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's
just asking. Okay.
Yeah. No, it's
it's a typo probably. Yeah.
It's the gas station and the store have
different addresses. Okay, got it.
Trade addresses. So
okay.
But that's the site, the gas station.
Okay. Thank you.
The lease refers to it as 720, and I believe the assessor refers to it as 750. So we always get those two a little mixed up. This was originally signed lease in 2000 for 20 years. And then in 2008, and the same with the McPhillips, they did some reinvestment into the property in 2008. And you have to think what was happening to the market back in 2008. And that is when Target was coming into the Canadian market. So a lot of the large format retailers were very worried about Target coming in. So they spent money on their stores to revitalize them, repositioned their merchandising. And so they actually did, partway through the current lease, they did a renegotiation and amendment to that lease. And they did the amendment. They got some inducements for the amendment, and they changed the rental rates. So they did the 2008 to 2011 was at $1,630, and then 2011 to 2023 is a step up of $1,750. And that's what the assessor has quoted here as $1,750, the October 2011. So that is the actual step up rent. So it's just the face rent. It's not what it wasn't negotiated in 2011 by any stretch. It was a renegotiation in 2008 under different market conditions for of a 2000 lease. And I get a net effective after taking all those things into account of $15.41. And if we look at, again, on the 2305 McPhillips, that's the same situation. The assessors got the $12 rent there in 2013. And again, that's not when that rent was negotiated. That's not a negotiated current market rent. That's a step up of of an original 1998 lease. Excuse me. Oh, got a frog in my throat here. That was original step up of a 1998 lease, which was amended again in 2008, when under different marketing conditions that are now, when Target was coming in and everyone was wanting to spend money in their stores to revitalize them, make them look good, to compete with Target. And then, so they had an $11 rent step up in 2008 to 2013, and 2013 to 2018, a $12 rent. And they got $1 million inducement for that as well. So it's cash that they could spend to reposition the store and re-merchandise it. And that gives you a net effective rent, taking all those things into account, at $10.43, not the current step-up rate of $12 that the assessor is using. So going back to page 51. We have a number of other rents there listed, a number of stores for the Walmarts and the Canadian Tires, averaging stores of around, taking all the rents into account, averaging around $11.66. And if you look at the stores just over 30,000 square feet, you're looking at $8.24. And mind you, some of those over 30,000 square feet are merchandise stores that are still quite small at 33,000 square feet on there. So we took a look at those rents, then took a look at the vacancy allowance, and we came up with on page 58, a summary of an $8 rent, agreeing with the assessor on the other factors, to a value of $11,544,000. We did a comparison of that against the income approach at a $10,815,000, and our income approach at $11,544,000, being picking somewhat in between is the market value for the Canadian Tire store of $11 million. And to that $11 million, you would need to add the value of the gas station, which is $986,000 to get our total value. The gas station, we don't agree at all with how the assessor got to that number, but the number is very similar to the number we did using a different terminology and methodology. And so we aren't in disagreement with the overall value for the gas station component. So really it comes down to just what the rents are for the Canadian Tire store. And that's my submission.
Thank you. If you have any questions, you can ask them now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My first question. You are.
Sorry, can you speak up, please?
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Buckingham, you are in agreement to the gas station value. Is that right?
That is correct.
Yeah, that means we both, doesn't matter how we got the
How
number.
we got there different ways, but we ended up the same place. That is correct.
Okay, gas station, we are in agreement. Now, okay, that's first question. Then I do have a question regarding to page number 51, your chart of the leasing costs. But I don't talk anything right now, Mr. Chairman, because my rebuttal for that evidence. Can I talk at the rebuttal presentation?
If the rebuttal leads to that question, is what satisfactory if you say to that.
Okay.
But any question you have, whether you're going to cover rebuttal or not, it won't preclude you. But
okay, sure. Then I will ask. Can you explain how you got the Walmart rents? The calculation of $6.75. You have Walmarts are listed here in page 51.
yes.
And you are showing rental rates in there, lease rates in there. How you got that number?
It's the lease rate divided by the square footage of the store. So
Okay, that means it's not the original lease. You calculated as your interpretation.
It's the original lease. Some of the Walmart stores, they've added a grocery store component to them since the original lease. at Walmart's cost. They added the grocery store component.
That means you calculated those numbers using annual rental rent divided by the current square footage, not the original lease.
Correct.
Okay. And also, that's all my questions regarding this one, this page. And page 58. Can you please explain how shortfall is $8.67 when you want the $8 of rent per square feet?
You're correct. We are in disagreement with the shortfall of $6.50.
That means you are
$6.50, and I'm not sure. I can recalculate what that number is there. Why don't I do that right now? Problem with spreadsheets. I'm not sure if that number is the correct number and the 876 is wrong, or the number is wrong. So let me just get my calculator out and recalculate that. Yeah, actually, with the that number, the 876 is just the wrong print. If I recalculate the number using the 650 shortfall, we do get the 27,136. So that where it says 857, that's actually the 650.
that means it's the typo.
Yes.
That means you agree with our module parameters. That means vacancy is 4%.
Yes.
Expenses are 3%.
Yes.
Shortfall is $6.50.
That is correct.
And cap rate is 6.5%.
That is correct.
We are in agreement to all the parameters except the rental rate.
Except for one minor issue.
Okay.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you. And page number 66.
Which page number, sorry?
Page number 66 on applicant's brief.
Thank you.
That net effective rent calculation, you are using tenant inducement to reduce the net rents.
That is correct.
Okay. Do you aware in Manitoba we don't use the tenant inducement for reduce the net rents?
Those were cash inducements to the store. So if I give you $1 million and then I get that back through rents, the rents are artificially inflated. So the inducement is with cash inducement for the store. They can outfit the store with their computer systems and their racking and and all that sort of stuff. It's a cash up front that the stores need outlay, and if the landlord gives them that cash outlay, then that's reflected in a higher rent. So if they didn't give them that, the rent would be that much lower. So if the landlord didn't give them the cash inducement of through here, then they would have just had lower rents to begin with. So it's a reflection of the net effective rent.
Okay, do you aware we have municipal board orders for not using those funds for recalculate, interpret the way we wanted to interpret?
I'm using proper appraisal methodology.
Okay.
You're using proper appraisal methodology. Yeah. Proper appraisal methodology would be that if I give you $1 million and then I get that money back in the rent, that's not real estate rent. That's a financing option. So many things have been written about that in the literature.
Okay. That's all my questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, do you have any questions?
With respect to some of the information that you presented again at page 66 of your brief, these are both Canadian Tire stores?
That's correct.
With original leases and renegotiations, those leases would have expired prior to the reference date.
No.
Is that fair?
No, the one that expired would be the McPhillips one, because that went to 2018.
Yes.
But they have options within there to continue on at the $12. Yeah, I think they've got, if I recall, they've got a number of 5-year options to continue that lease.
Is that similar with respect to 720 St. James Street?
720 St. James goes to 2023. It was, they renegotiated partway through in 2020, and they renegotiated to 2023, and I'm not sure what the options are in 2023 and beyond.
Okay, what is the source of your information for those two leases and those two properties?
The actual lease documents.
And those two Canadian Tires, one you're showing as a net rent of $15.41, which is roughly $3 above what the city has assessed the rent for 1519 Regent Avenue.
That is correct. 720 St. James is the highest rent location in Winnipeg. It's right across from Polo Park, right? That's the.
I'm just trying to do some averaging math here, and the average of these two rents comes very close to the model or the rent as proposed by the city assessor. 2584 divided by 2.
If you were to average these two together, but again, these aren't current market. These aren't current market negotiated rents. You know, when they did the renegotiation in 2008, what was the market conditions in 2008 when they redid that negotiations? That was when Target was coming into Canada. And many of the large format retailers spent a lot of money upgrading, re-merchandising their stores to combat the Target entry into Canada. Subsequent to Target leaving, since 2000, again back in 2008, much different than our Target our valuation date. And I pointed out earlier, a lot of those Target stores, a lot of those Sears stores, those large format retailers have now broken them down into smaller stores, because that large format isn't as desirable.
Thank you. I have nothing further.
Ms. Knight, any questions?
I do. In regards to your page 19 about when Target stores left and Sears left. So you're saying Canadian Tire owns these properties, and if they were to leave and sell, it would be a lower value for the sale price because they'd have to break it up and get a lower rent?
No, when you break these up into smaller categories, they actually get a higher rent. So when you break it up into, I'll give the example of the Marshalls and the HomeSense. Marshalls and HomeSense, because they're 30,000 square foot stores, so 30,000 square foot stores, they pay a higher rental rate. But what you're doing there is a speculative redevelopment. So if and I'm not advocating, this is what was referred to as the dark store theory, is if Canadian Tire left, what are you left with? An empty store, and what would they do with it? That, you know, from the evidence out there, it looks like they would either tear it down or keep the shell and redevelop it into a much smaller stores in there. But that's a speculation.
Okay.
What we have to look at is what is the market? What would the market pay for that large format retailer? And the market's not what it was back in 2008.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Hey, so I got a couple of questions. So you indicated the rent did go up when you broke these things down. So in a best use theory, in fact, these properties would command higher rates.
No, in the best use, if they broke them down, but then if you get that's a speculative redevelopment. So if you were to put in a bunch of smaller stores at higher rents, then you have to put in how much is it going to cost you to redevelop it? How long is it going to take you to redevelop it? And what kind of time frame is it going to take to get those tenants in there? And is there a market for those new tenants? So look at some of the Sears stores. It took them a number of years to redevelop those stores. So we're not talking about redevelopment. We're talking about what is the market rent that you could get for 104,000 square feet.
I'm looking again at your page 66, and the two leases that comprise those properties, and one appears to be the highest value for a Canadian Tire store, the one across the boulevard, and that commands the highest rent because of the location, I guess, you're indicating. And the other seems to be the lowest one. Would you agree with that? In the city of Winnipeg?
Well, we have to go back to page 51.
Yeah.
There's a mix of Walmart and Canadian Tires there. 1080 Grant is at 675. That would be the lowest one in the city.
And in fact, the lease on McPhillips is the store on St. James and the store on Regent are both standalone stores. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And the store at on McPhillips is within a shopping center.
That is correct.
So they have different. There are differences there. Would you agree?
Yes, there are differences. Yes,
And I think the store also on Grant also is in the shopping center.
that is correct.
Yeah. And you indicated that these rents were first negotiated when there was concern that Target was coming in and bigger box spaces would be difficult to find. So they commanded higher rents at that time.
Yes, there was quite a demand because you had a new player into the market coming in, and really they wanted to renegotiate and get some cash to upgrade the stores and re-merchandise the stores, so that they could compete effectively with Target.
But in fact, both these leases that you're showing on page 66 have step-ups in them.
Yes, and they're not reflecting your step-up rate. Is not a market rate as of 2011. So this was negotiated in 2008 from a 2000 lease. So at best, this is someone's interpretation of what lease rates could be, or an inflation factor based from 2008 to 2011. So it's not a negotiated rent to reflect market value in 2011.
So Beckingham, though, would you agree that the best indication of what value would be what would be negotiated as of the valuation date on a lease that was being entered at that time if there was one available?
I would agree with you, but that's why this one is a 2008 revised lease negotiation.
I'm also though looking at the lease on McPhillips, and that lease actually did come to an end, and they agreed to exercise the option and stay on at $12 a foot in a mall. They didn't have to do that if they didn't think it was viable, or they could have tried to negotiate a lower rent if that was what the market would assume was reasonable at the time, would they not?
Typically in those leases, there are preset rates, and typically in those leases, they will say things like not less than current rent, or whatever the current rent is. So now you're looking at not less than what they currently paid, or they've set predetermined rates in there. So they in 2008 they said they'll give us 10 5-year options at this rate. So it's not a negotiated rent to reflect current market rents. What it is, though, it's a business decision to say, well, yeah, maybe we're paying $4 more a square foot in rent, but how much is that going to cost us to move locations and get a new location? So that's more of a business decision than a real estate decision reflecting market rents.
Okay, and there's some pressure there, I agree, but also at the same time, the shopping mall in McPhillips doesn't want to see that space go dark either. And if the Canadian was to say to them, when that lease expired, we're going unless we get cheaper rent, there'd be pressure on the landlord also to move the rent down if he knew the market rates have gone down. Anybody coming, it's going to be dark for a long time. Anybody coming in is going to have to be satisfied a lower rate because $12 a foot is too high now.
Now you're talking a long perturbed legal battle about what they've already signed in the contract versus negotiation too. Maybe both sides don't, for business purposes, a lot of the owners and Canadian Tire are involved in a lot of leases across the country, and there's some business reasons to continue on. More than just real estate reasons. More than just real estate reasons. So now we're talking, what is the reflection of market rent?
Okay, well, you didn't really answer my question satisfactorily, because I feel that the fact that they stayed on and didn't try to negotiate a lower rent than they could have, because they weren't bound anymore, is an indication that was probably a pretty good value at the time.
Not necessarily. No, that could be that it's going to cost them $50 million business money to move to save $3 million in rent. So you do the math. Which one's more effective? There. That's not a real estate decision. That's a business decision. It's not reflective of the market rents.
Okay, thank you. I guess at this point, if there is rebuttal from either or both sides, we could hear it now if you wish to proceed with it.
I think we were gonna take.
We'll have to take a break.
Yeah.
Sure.
I actually just had a quick question. Can I redirect and ask a question?
Absolutely.
I want to go back to something Mr. Chair said pertaining to standalone versus malls. On page 51 of your report, how many of those Walmarts are standalones?
I believe 4 of them are standalones.
And what are the rents that they're achieving?
They range from $6.66 to around $6.
So all the standalone stores that are in your list there are between $6 and $7.
Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you. That's everything.
Okay, we'll take a few minutes to get ready for rebuttal.
Perfect.
Thank you. Okay, we're now ready to present rebuttal evidence, and I believe since you're rebutting the assessor's evidence, you should go first. You should give evidence first, and then she'll do the rebuttal on yours.
Sure, not a problem there. I actually don't have a copy of your rebuttal yet, but I'll get that next, I'm assuming. Oh, thank you very much. Thank you. Okay, so I've got some rebuttal evidence here with regards to, this refers to page 4 of the assessor's report, and basically their top comparables that they had there. And just to refer, the first one at 775 Panet Road and 1333 Sargent Avenue. Those, again, those start dates are not start dates of the lease. Those are step-up rates in 2016. And if you turn the page over, both those two go way back to 2002, when there was a giant sale leaseback of Rona properties. And there were 20 properties that they did a sale leaseback for in 2002. And you'll see the advertisement there. There's the two of them in Winnipeg, Sargent and Panet Road. So these are sale leasebacks, and those are not market rents. Those are a financing operation. They sold the properties and did a leaseback with step-ups every 5 years. And so these ones are not current market rents and negotiated market rents. These are step-up rates from way back in 2002. Okay. Looking at 1636 Kenniston, again, that was a built-to-suit situation. in 2007. And that is, again, the step-up rate that they're using. That's not the actual market rent that was negotiated at that time. We'll go to 1065 St. James, and that's the old brick warehouse. That's a mix of retail and warehouse. And that's, I know nothing about the lease other than they're saying here it started in 1988, which is, quite far away from the valuation paid. And then we talked about the two leases in detail at the 750 St. James and mixed those. Again, those are the step-up rates. Step-up rates are not current market rents. Those are step-up rates negotiated at another time frame. The second chart was really, that was, I was going to use this for the Walmart, which we came to an agreement on for the rents in the Walmart. But I thought I just, yeah, so there wasn't really anything to rebut on that. We can just disregard that second half of the chart.
Thank you. Serena, if you have any questions on this?
Yes, Mr. Chair. It's only one question. The Planet Road Sergeant, and those do you know who is the current occupier?
Yes, the Planet Road one is Lowe's, which was owned by, which is the owner of Rona. It's a rebranding of the store. So they did a rebranding of the store.
It is not the other way around. It's the Lowe's acquired by Rona.
Other way around. Lowe's is a giant firm out of the United States. They acquired Rona. And then they rebranded the store. Some of their stores are Rona still. Some of them they rebranded as Lowe's. But it's just a rebranding of the store. It wasn't a new lease negotiated.
Did you ever see the original lease for those ones?
I haven't seen the full lease. I did have, at one point, way back in 2011, I did have terms of the leases, and it was every 5 years was a step up on it. But I wasn't able to find that information.
Do you aware we use those ones, those dates from the income expenses mailer we received? Do you aware?
Yeah. So when you receive an income and expense mailer, they will tell you the current step is from 2016 to 2021. That's the current step that they're getting. That's not the, and that's why they need to be investigated to see if they are reflective of current market rents. Those are just step up rents of their original 2002 lease negotiations.
That's all my question.
Thank you. Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
So, Matt, do you have any questions?
No, I don't. Thank you.
And I don't either. So, Mr. Roy, you can go on with your rebuttal then.
Okay.
I just have a quick question. This the information or the rebuttal information you just handed me is for 1576 region, it says?
No, sorry, it's you were talking about my rebuttal, right?
Yeah, it just,
Okay.
it says.
No, it's just
Okay.
this rebuttal for file number 223775.
Okay, perfect. I just wanted to clarify it. And then may
Sorry, I should have write that number, but
that's
the
really
last
okay.
thing.
May I ask the board to make a confidentiality order on her rebuttal information because it's privatized lease of my client?
And I can indicate that none of us ever take any of the evidence out of here, out of this room. We don't make copies of it, and it's.
Oh, okay.
we had it
I
destroyed.
wasn't sure if
And yeah,
it's
none of
public.
us will
Okay, perfect.
talk about any,
Yeah.
you know.
I just didn't know if your documentation is public here, like some other jurisdictions.
The evidence itself goes in the evidence folder, goes to the municipal board. The
Yeah.
evidence will be available there, but
Outside of
other
that,
than
okay,
no board member is going to retain any.
perfect. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My rebuttal is very simple. I'm just talking on applicant's briefs, page number 51. What are the lease information in there? Listed lease information. I am providing some actual documents, how I see the differently than what he presented in this chart. The first one, 1576 Regent Avenue, my rebuttal. You will see the lease document. I'm presenting my rebuttal, but based on his page number 51. 1576 Regent Avenue, you will see that lease document. It's only 1-2 page document. I only need to talk about what's the actual leasable area here and how much they pay, because this Walmart also, it's originally smaller than the current size. This annual rental value paid for size of 129,298,000 square feet Walmart, not the current situation, the current size. Current size is bigger because net rent, as my interpretation, net rent is higher than what we listed in here, like $6. $6 is the annual rental annual rent divided by the current square footage, but it should be actually annual rent divided by the lease at that time square footage. That's how I interpret this one. I just want to show you the information. It's different than in the chart. Then you can see Unicity Walmart. It's clearly stated 128,253 square feet at annual rental value, annual rent, 1,006,135. When I divided this number, this annual rent by square footage, I would get the higher rent than what Mr. Buckingham listed here. And the same with the Keniston Boulevard. Keniston Boulevard is, I have attached the one lease page. And also the next pages are for the income expenses mailer, how they reported. The Canadian Tire for Max Phillips, they reported $12 per square feet as the net rent. And it shows when it's the started. Lease started in 1998. It is step up lease, but they negotiated $12, and still they are continue paying $12, as my knowledge. The next one is the Canadian Tire income expenses mailer. Canadian Tire has the 2 civic addresses. 750 Canadian St. James is the Canadian Tire retail store, Canadian Tire retail warehouse. 720 St. James is the Canadian Tire gas kiosk, gas bar. It is 2 civic address, 1 roll number. They are paying $17.50. Square footage is 97,400. The other municipal board orders, we have orders that regards to, we are not using tenant inducement, tenant allowances to recalculate the effective net operating income. Those board orders showing those details. This is, I only want to show, we came up with the list of print comparables and the information based on the original information we have. We did not recalculate anything to came up with the net numbers. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all.
Thank you. Hey, applicants, if you have any questions of the assessor on the rebuttal, you can ask them.
The only questions I have are these Walmart leases are indicating a rent of about between $8 and $9, is that correct?
Yes, because that's how they interpret that. This is the original information. We always use the original information for comparables. We did not recalculate any numbers.
So you're saying that the rent should be about $9
Yes,
for the subject?
yes.
Okay. I do not have any other further questions, Mr. Nishibeki.
Just a couple questions here on the looking at the mailer that you received for Garden City,
Okay.
Canadian Tire. When it says type STP, would that be step up that it's referring
Yes.
to? Yes. So it's not a current negotiated rent; it's a step up rent, and that's what it was reported.
Yeah, that's what I try to explain because they reported as a net lease and also they put the STP. I believe it's a step up, but as I know, they keep paying $12 continuously as of today also.
Yeah. So there's a difference between a base rent and a market rent, correct?
Yes, but
And
they
so
agree
step up would be a base rent, right?
I don't know. I believe they started with the $10 something, then they go to $11.50. They have $12. We can interpret many different ways. I didn't see the list. The way they reported $12 net rents. That's all I can say.
Okay. So it wasn't investigated then to figure out whether it
Because
was
we
a step
don't
up
have
or negotiation.
we don't have any list pages to see how they interpret those ones.
No further questions.
Greg, do you have any questions?
I don't have a question in regards to the rebuttals, but I do have a question after those rebuttals are done, just as clarification, if that would be fine when we're done.
Okay, I'll give you the opportunity after all the questions we've got.
Thank you.
Mr. Mann, do you have any questions?
I don't, thank you.
And I don't either, so Ms. Knight asked you a question.
So just confirming, you guys, for the you agree on the 986 for the kiosk, both of you. You both agree on the 6.5 cap rate. You both agree on the 4%. You both agree on the square footage and the shortfall. The difference comes in the NOI. Is that correct?
Different is the rental rates on the
Yes, that is correct.
Okay, so your total for the city is 18,867, and the total for the appellant is 12,530. Correct?
Yes.
Thank you.
Yeah, I didn't have those two numbers together. Yes, okay, thank you.
Okay. So we've heard all the evidence and the rebuttal on this matter, so we will make our decision in due course, and that concludes the evidence on agenda item number 1.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
Okay, and I understand that the second matter is before the hearing took place today, the agreement's been arrived at between the parties. You're both satisfied with it, so we won't have to delve into that.
Yes,
So
that's right.
that's been removed from the agenda.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Okay, so I think that is your matters. Thank you for your attendance and you heard from us.
Thank you. Thank you for your time, sir.
Okay, so the next matter is at 1499 Reach Avenue West.
Good morning.
Sorry, Mr. Chair, was
it 1499? That's next.
Nice, so we'll have you sworn in and we can
Sure.
what the evidence is.
Mr. Reimer, please state your full name. Do you affirm that the evidence you're about to give at this hearing is the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you. Seated.
Just go ahead when you're ready, Maria.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Today I'm making a recommendation based on, and me and Mr. Reimer is in agreement to the recommendation. But if I explain, we are making a recommendation on the adjusting a parking lot area, because the Costco used for the parking lot different roll numbers. It came to the Board of Revision before, and the value confirmed. I'm using that parking value to reduce the income value. My final number is 20,485,000 for 1499 Region Avenue West property.
Thank you. And Mr. Weinberg, you agree with that? Okay, so this merely had a parking lot that's already been assessed and confirmed.
Yeah, parking lot.
And that's come off of the value of this property.
Yes, yes. They're using the single economic unit because Costco used the parking lot.
Any questions, Mr. Knapp?
Just for my clarification, the valuation, because of the different income streams, the valuation that you have used to reduce is with respect to the net operating income or the leasable area? And if so, what is the new square footage that is being?
It's the land area. It's the parking lot. It's you want the, because it's the income. We value this property on income.
Mm-hmm.
But this property, the Costco Costco has the two different parking lots adjacent to this location. It's used for parking, but those are vacant lands. Then the both vacant land lots go to the hearing, and they confirm the value. Now I am using that vacant land deduct that vacant land value from the final valuation. That's it's nothing changed the net operating income or anything. It's just deducting this original assessment, the other two assessments.
I understand now.
I sat on that and I remember it.
Okay.
And we did confirm that.
Because I'm happy.
Yeah, and so basically, Mr. Weinberg, in the end, it comes out.
It's the income-based value of the subject minus the separately assessed parking lots, and if it helps for the board's reference, in our pages 7 and 8, we set out the aerial map showing where the two lots are, and that's the.
And based on my previous knowledge of this, I think it's a fair
I
analyzation
understand.
of matters.
Yeah,
Looking for clarification.
If I say that, Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Okay, so that takes us then to 1536 Mission Avenue West.
thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yes. Thank you. Go ahead, sorry.
Property address 1536 Region Avenue West. Original valuation is 4,180,000. Today I'm making a recommendation to reduce to 4,001,000. We are in agreement to the value.
You're in agreement with that?
I am in agreement, yes.
Okay, and you can tell us how that was arrived at?
Okay. This property, even though we use as a region, retail warehouse. It has a bank, credit union. The credit union original rent was $30.92. We adjusted $30 and cap rate adjustment, rent adjustment and cap rate adjustment.
Okay, so it was a square footage and cap rate adjustment.
Yes.
And what was the new number?
6.85.
6.8.
Zach, do you have any questions for clarification?
I do not.
Mr. Mann?
No, thanks, I kind of jumped in, sort of.
That's fine. You know what, anything goes. That's okay. If you need clarification, get it when you're thinking about it. And I'm satisfied, so thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that takes us now, we're really on Regent Avenue today, to 1546 Regent Avenue West. Mr. LaRue, when you're ready, you can proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Property address 1546 Regent Avenue West. This property original assets for $5,697,000. This is the retail warehouse with the additional land value. It is a pet land in region. Today I'm making a recommendation to reduce to $4,950,000.
150,000.
60 or 50? Sorry.
50, sorry, 50.
50, okay.
Based on cap rate adjustment.
Okay,
and
again,
rent-
Mr. Reimer's indicated he's accepting that, and you'll now explain to us how that was arrived at. Thank you.
rental rate adjustment, and cap rate adjustment. This is the smaller retail warehouse. Cap rate is 6.85.
625. That's the adjustment.
And rental rate adjusted to little bit above actual rent. Actual rent is $17.50. Now it's adjusted to $18.
So, man, you require any clarification?
No, I don't, thank you.
Ms. Knight?
No, I'm good.
And I am as well, thank you. And next we have 1590 Regent Avenue West. Rita, when you're ready, you can go ahead forward.
1590 regional. That's it.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Property address 1590 Regent Avenue West. This is the Home Depot holding and used as a Home Depot store. Today I'm seeking a non-compliance penalties on this property. We send the mailer and we have signatures and attached in my briefs. Just after page 5, you can see the signature. They did not respond back to us. So I'm seeking non-compliance penalty on this property. And also this property original value went out so much lower than the last cycle. We agreed value for 15.1. 20,221,000. We believe it's a fair market value for the Home Depot. We use $12.50 per square feet to calculate the market rents using 6.45 cap rate. You will see my calculation on page number 4, and page number 3 are the rent comparables. Rent comparables showing we have range of $10.53 to $7.
I guess you're seeking a non-compliance, so we have to decide whether
Sorry.
Mr. Reimer's going to go first or you are. And my first question, I guess, on Mr. Reimer is.
I have no evidence to dispute the non-compliance. So
Okay,
we're not disputing.
so if non-compliance will be granted, so Mr. Reimer will then go first.
Okay, sure, sorry.
Okay, no problem, no, don't be sorry, that's fine. I was wondering if there was a recommendation coming, and if there was, then I was gonna listen to it, and then we decide whether after it was gonna go forward this year or next year, but if there isn't, Mr. Reimer will go first.
First, yes.
Okay?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. So if I could ask the board members, we've got 3 documents that would apply in this case and one other case that I expect will be debated this morning. What I propose to do is 2 of the documents are common to both. One is a non-recoverable study, one is a cap rate study. So I would propose to go through all of that information once, have it carried forward to the other matter that's going to be under debate, if I could do that. So on the evidence in chief then for this property, Home Depot Holdings, if I could ask the panel members briefly to turn to my page 2. So the request this morning is to reduce this 2023 assessment from, I'm going to use round figures, from 20.2 million to 17.75 million based on the information and evidence that we are submitting this morning. So then, if I might ask the board members and Ms. Tanawara to turn briefly to page 6. So this is just a street view of the Home Depot and the aerial map at the bottom of page 6, and then turning to page 7, indicating the location at the corner of Regent and L'Arche-Mortier. So this is a freestanding retail warehouse. It's owned and occupied by Home Depot, located, as I mentioned, at Crossroads, and of course the Walmart and the Superstore are located at this site as well. This store is 114,612 square feet in size. Same leasable area, was constructed in 2000 with a wall height of 26 feet. The land to building ratio is 3.91 to 1 in this case. So if I could ask the board members and Ms. Tanawara then to turn to page 11, please. There, just to frame the discussion or for the board, I should say, there are 3 issues in this case in terms of evaluation. We're not as far apart as one might expect on the market rent issue. The department's applied $12.50 a foot, and what you'll see in a few minutes is that Altus is suggesting a rate of $12 a square foot. However, the other 2 issues which are common, as I mentioned, to both appeals are the non-recoverable expense allowance and the cap rate. And Mr. Chairman, as you'll see as I go through these materials, they are interlinked. They're inextricably interlinked, and I'll explain that in a few minutes. So turning initially to the market rent issue. And now I'm going to go back to the page I referred to our page 11. We've set forth in page 11 a number of larger retail rental rates, some of which were step leases, and the board's heard certainly a lot of information concerning the leases and the steps versus the options, the renewals and such. We took a very close look at, and I'm referring really to the largest rents, which is basically from indices, I should say, 17 through 26. These are the rents that are in the 85 to 150,000 square foot range. Based on what we saw with these rates, certainly, and I recall Ms. Tanawara had sort of talked about the Canadian Tire in St. James being a bit of an outlier due to presumably some of the TIs and such. But leaving that aside, then the rates are sort of starting at the 675. I guess the lowest is 666, and then up to 1465. So we're generally consistent with the department's rents. What I can say, and certainly I concur with the comments, that in a city like Winnipeg, there's certainly a number of big boxes, but the market is limited. And the information, therefore, because of that, is also limited.
I'm sorry, can you speak directly into the microphone? Thank you.
I certainly can.
Thank you.
I'm going to move this way. I apologize, Ms. Lane. Have you heard what I've said so far? Or should
I missed the last few words, that's all.
Okay. First question, is this better?
Yes, thank you very much.
All right. So what I was suggesting was that there's very limited participants when you're talking about spaces that are of this size in a city like Winnipeg. There are certainly some, and we provided the best evidence that we were able to find concerning those tenancies. the range is between, call it, I'm round figures, 675 up to roughly 1450. The debate, here's though where I'd like to make some commentary to the board. And you understand this through sort of assessment and appraisal theory. Ms. Tenuera has correctly pointed out, and we're taking that certainly very seriously. The municipal board has in the past commented on the fact they will not accept and it's called a net effective rent, the NER, taking off the TIs, taking off the free rent, dollar for dollar off top line. And the reason is, in these municipal board decisions, they correctly linked the different calculation of an NER rent, which can be very different from the face rent, but they correctly linked that adjustment to the necessity to also adjust your cap rate. Because of course, when you think of it mathematically, just a simple example, you've got a $15 face rate, call it $3 million in TIs. Okay, so just again, I'm using an assumption. So let's assume for the moment that the $15 face rate, if you take off the TIs and you take off some of the free rent, the NER for that is $12. Well, that's all well and good, except when you're valuing the property, if your capitalization rate analysis is based on face rents, and while at the same time you're using an NER based on a different methodology to get the cap rate calculation, and you're using an NER for the subject calculation, well, now you're talking apples and oranges. It doesn't line up. So to clarify, and the reason I say this, I believe this is very important. Our suggestion this morning is to the market rent. Our analysis of the market rent is admittedly based on face rents. But the key is this: the face rents are also what are used in our capitalization rate study. So we are being consistent. You cannot take, in my view, it becomes very problematic when you've got a capitalization rate that the department's applying. And Ms. Tenuera can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe that the modeling is also done based on the face rates, and therefore the cap rates that are being driven by that modeling would be again based on face rates. If I were to come in here and say, well, I'm liking the 6.75 cap or the 6.5 cap, but at the same time suggesting I want to use an NER, I just don't, in my respectful opinion, I don't believe that's appropriate. Our rates, and I wanted to set the stage for this, our rates are based on the face rates. They're based on a retail cap analysis using those face rates. We're being consistent throughout the process, and that's what the municipal board was saying. You have to be consistent in how you value the properties, both for your analysis and when you value the subject. So with all of that in mind then, looking at back to page 11, the indices 17 through 26. These are face rents, and in a lot of cases they're step ups. So we're trying to piece together what would the April 2021 market, a market conclusion be based on this information. So again, with that range in mind, which is reasonably consistent, we've got some lower rents than Ms. Tenuera is going to be presenting in her brief, but we've also got a lot of rents that are reasonably consistent. So just a couple of commentaries on our rents on page 12, and I'm going to focus on the larger ones. So index 18, which is, I'll make sure I have that's the Canadian Tire McPhillips. We've heard about that. There was an inducement. The net rent, the face rent's $12. The net effective rent for the board's information would be $10.43. One further quick comment. Where this becomes very important is if you've got a property that's had millions and millions of dollars invested into it, resulting in a higher face rent, which admittedly would be the case. If you're comparing that space with that rent to a property that has not been so renovated and has not had that kind of money invested into it, that's an adjustment that has to be made. That's not the application of an NER. That's saying this $12 was based on an original asset that's had $5 million invested into it. This property has not had that $5 million invested into it, and it would just simply not command the same rent. So that's a distinction. We're not suggesting NERs. We are saying you've got to be careful when you're analyzing your lease comparables to make sure that the nature of the asset is the same. So in the case of index 18, there was a significant inducement. The face rate was $12. For indices 19 and 24, these are the Rona stores, and they are, they were part of the sale leaseback. That's information that we also are privy to. And so we have some concerns with those dynamics. Index number 23 is the Canadian Tire lease. This is the very high one for reasons that actually Ms. Tenoir has referred to, and we're also aware of. This seems like a very high rate that would amount to an outlier. Index number 22 is the Rona store. It was leased in 2007 with at a rent of $12.50 with step-ups. Now, if one goes then to page 13, and this is not meant to be comprehensive analysis, but it's based on the data points that we were able to find in our analysis from that chart. And if you look at the regression line there, you can see, and predictably, you can see that as the size of the store increases, all of the things being equal, the rents tend to decrease, and that's simply economies of scale. So based upon that information and the lease information we presented, what we're suggesting for this premise, this property with an area of 114,612 square feet, is a rate of $12 a square foot. Again, not far off of the $12.50 applied by the department, but we continue to believe that $12 is very fair. Moving on to page 14, then the vacancy allowance, we're in agreement that the market vacancy, notwithstanding some of the vacancies in some of the other larger retail, for this asset class, sort of the big box retail, we believe that 4% is appropriate. Using the 650 shortfall rate, it's also consistent with our information. The non-recoverable expenses I will get into very, very briefly in a few minutes. We're suggesting 5% should continue to be applied for the non-recoverable expense, along with the 2% for what's historically been called other and amounts to a replacement reserve. We're suggesting, therefore, that the two together should equal 7% rather than 3%. I'll have more to say about that in a minute. Now, capitalization rate. We've got some commentary here on page 15 then, as to the cap rate information as it pertains to this case. I'm going to comment on our study very shortly, but I do want to draw the board's attention to some of the guidance provided by the municipal board for these very large retail units, again, with a very limited market participants. What you'll see when I present my cap rate study is we've got two transactions for properties that have been coded RWC. The one transaction is 6.72% and the other is 7.39%. Quite bluntly, what you're going to see is that the areas, they are labeled as RWC properties. The areas are substantially smaller, but it's when you're talking about sort of the type of property, those are the two transactions we have, along with several others. So those, to be clear, those cap rate calculations are based on the inclusion of the full 5% non-recoverable plus 2% for other. The municipal board, and I'm roughly halfway through page 15 now, the municipal board has commented on this in order 07167 that dealt with Costco. And the agent in that case argued that because of the size of the property, which is roughly 130,000 feet, and the rigid steel construction with slightly shorter age life than masonry, the cap rate premium should be applied of 100 basis points. The board didn't accept 100 basis points, but they did apply a 50 basis point premium. In that case, factually increasing the cap from 10 to 10.5. That number for a cap rate is irrelevant, but it's the concept, it's the principle that's very important. And the other order in A99421, which is Revy store at the time, the board comments that the owner's agent argues if retail strip malls are accepted as having 10% cap rates, then the subject, being a type of property with greater risk, would have a higher cap rate. The board agrees with the owner's agent. There is, based on the evidence in this case, a higher risk associated with the larger big box retail stores than what would be the case with a strip mall property. And in this case, again, the board found that the cap rate should be increased by 500 basis points. The key concept there is when you've got very limited market participants in a city the size of Winnipeg, a premium is appropriate to reflect the limited participants, to reflect the limited market. So in this case, for the reasons I'm going to present shortly, we're suggesting a cap rate of no less than 6.75. That, I believe, is that's 30 basis points higher than the evidence that you'll hear from Ms. Tenoir. Our difference in cap rate is 30 basis points. though assuming in our case that the full 5% is applied. So then briefly turning to page 16. Based on our analysis, we've got a market rent of $12 a foot for the reasons mentioned, vacancy of 4, shortfall at 6.5, the non-recoverables as mentioned at 5%, the other or reserve for replacement at 2%, and the cap of 675, resulting in our requested value of $17,750,000. So if I might then ask the board and Ms. Tinawara now to pull up our non-recoverable study. And I'm very well aware that the board members have heard this multiple times, so I'm only going to hit the high points, but I am going to draw the board's attention to some additional information that we've put in this study as it relates to capital. So turning briefly, Mr. Chairman, tell me when you've got the study pulled up.
I'm good.
You just have to know which page to go to.
I'm sorry?
I just need to know which page.
Oh, we're starting on page 2 of the non-recoverable study. So on page 2, fundamentally, what we're stating in no uncertain terms, this allowance, and I'm halfway down the page, what this allowance is not. This isn't an expense and never has intended to be an expense related to standard management fees. There has never been any question that when you've got situations with a typical triple net lease, management fees are recovered without question, and we're not disputing that. That's not what this allowance is about, and never has been in our respectful submission. What it's been intended to be all along was an allowance for truly non-recoverable expenses relating to the proper management of a property. And what you'll see is there's fundamentally three expenses that fall into this category very routinely. First and foremost, leasing commissions. If you've got a space that is, of course, if a broker is working with the to lease up the space in the secure tenant, the brokers are paid based on a commission, and those commissions, certainly as indicated in the study and all the detailed information attached to it, those commissions can be very significant depending on what's happening in the building in a given year. Secondly, advertising and marketing, again, not recovered, but very, very routinely incurred by the property at the landlord's expense. And finally, professional fees, which are also incurred annually for legal fees, accounting fees, and such. There's also an asset management fee that is much more sporadic. Some properties certainly have that as an expense, most don't. Where it has shown up in our analysis and review of the income statements, we've included it, but it's not very common. Just looking at pages 2 and 3, then we've got a couple of quotes from the original assessment manuals published by the City of Winnipeg. And as Mr. Chairman, I know certainly you've been on the board for several years, and as you'll know, I've started in this industry coming on 24 years now. And I do recall clearly when these manuals first came out, there's some statements in there that I recall from my early years in this industry. And what the statements made by the city assessor stated at the bottom of page 2 now, non-recoverable operating expenses with this what I believe has been misnamed as management, but that's what it's been called. And the statement made was, even with net leases and competent management, there will still be expenses incurred by the landlord that are non-recoverable from the tenants, such as processing payments, chasing bad debts. In our submission, the concept is exactly right. Some of the other expenses that we're bringing to the board's attention fall into that category, and that's what we're finding more routinely. So this, again, in my respectful submission, reinforces the concept. We're not talking about quote unquote management fees. We're talking about truly non-recoverable operating expenses in competent and typical management of the property. Page 3, just a reiteration of some subsequent manuals, basically saying the same thing. Going to page 4, at the bottom of page 4, this gets into now some appraisal theory. And there is at the bottom of page 4 a reference quote from the case studies and appraisal. And what it states, this is the indented paragraph at the bottom of page 4. The appraiser should also account for non-recoverable expenses, also called non-rechargeable expenses. Most important non-recoverable cost items to be aware of are space marketing costs, which include both tenant inducements and leasing costs. And now I'm going to pause for a second. We are specifically not including TIs in our conclusion. We've got a separate second column that shows the effect of the percentages if you include TIs. They're hugely different and much higher as one would expect. We are specifically not including TIs when we come to our 5%. But we are certainly looking at the leasing costs, the commissions, as well as professional fees and marketing costs. Now, they also talk about an allowance for structural or mechanical repairs. That ties directly into what's been known as the other expense, and we're not disputing the other expense of 2%. Last sentence, the other costs associated with leasing spaces, leasing commissions, that we are including in our analysis. Skipping over then to the bottom of page 5, and this is from the office property valuation text from UBC, one of the industry leaders for these publications. In the first indented paragraph, and this is key and consistent with our approach, it says operating costs and property taxes recoverable, and you'll see there management fees are typically shown as recoverable. Absolutely, no question. But then you go to the last paragraph on page 5, leasing and capital costs, non-recoverable expenses. The appraiser should also account for non-recoverable expenses. Most important non-recoverable cost items to be aware of are space marketing costs, which include both tenant-induced leasing costs and an allowance for structural repairs. Again, the leasing commissions being the most significant. Turning to page 6, we've got a brief reference to the SAMA, which is the Saskatchewan Appraisal Authority. Middle of page 6, there is a statement there that talks about the accounting for the non-recoverable operating expenses. And then going to page 7, they actually list the non-recoverable, and this is the first half of page 7, listing the typical non-recoverable operating expenses based on their analysis. They include legal and audit fees, structural repairs, again, part of the quote-unquote other allowance, advertising and promotion, and leasing commissions. Those three, legal and audit, advertising, and leasing commissions, form the basis of our study for the most part. Looking at then MPAC, which is the Ontario Assessing Authority, now I'm going to skip to page 8, at the top of page 8. This is from the Ontario Municipal Assessment Corporation, non-recoverable operating expenses. In the second paragraph, there are typically two areas where the property owner has to cover expenses: non-recoverable operating expenses, which are not passed on to the tenants, such as legal and audit fees, advertising and promotion fees, and expenses with operating any vacant space. That item is covered by shortfall, so that's not part of our analysis either. So then, going then to the middle of page 9, please. This is a list of all the non-recoverable operating expenses that we've encountered in the vast majority of the cases relating to non-recoverable operating expenses. Of all of those, as I've mentioned, there's only 3 that we're accounting for in our analysis: leasing commissions, marketing, advertising, and professional fees, and where it comes up, asset management fees, but again, much less common. So then going to page 11, this is our chart. I mentioned earlier that we had sort of run 2 sets of numbers, and there's the 2 columns there. The first column, which is the second last column from the right, that's the key for our purposes of our submission. This column represents the percentages based on only those 3 items, but excluding TIs. And as you can see, it ranges from a low of 2.6 to a high of 16.2, with an average of 6.64% and a median of 5.98%. So that's based on that analysis. It was actually, it states at the top 3-year average, but that's actually incorrect. I've done the analysis. For the most part, this is now a 5-year analysis that was done, resulting in those figures. As I mentioned earlier, if you include the TI, which is the last column, the numbers are much higher still. We provide that for the board's information. We're not relying on it. We are relying on the submissions excluding TIs. So now this is the additional information I wanted to bring to the attention of the board, and it speaks to I said earlier that cap rate inclusion, or the adjustment of this expense item, the non-recoverable expense, has a direct bearing on our cap rate submission, because our cap rate analysis in each and every case includes the 5%. I'm at the bottom of page 12 now, or bottom third of page 12. And I talk about the inverse relationship between the non-recoverable expense and our capitalization rate analysis. If a reduction in and if in the board's mind, the reduction in the non-recoverable expense is appropriate, that by necessity impacts the capitalization rate figures that we provide, and the capitalization rate would have to be increased. And I provide a simple example. And now I'm on page 13. And in the scenarios I'm going to present, there's 3 scenarios. And in all 3 scenarios, the only change in the valuation parameter in those 3 scenarios is the non-recoverable expense allowance. Everything else is the same. So in those scenarios, and I present them in the charts, you've got an assumed potential net face rent of $1 million, a vacancy allowance of 5%, and in the first example, a non-recoverable expense allowance of 5%, which forms the basis of our request this morning, the expense allowance for other or reserve at 2%, shortfall rate of $7, and a purchase price of $11.5 million. So based on those assumptions, including the 5%, the indicated cap rate, as you can see at the bottom of page 13, is 7.38%. That's scenario number 1. Now moving to page 14. The exact same set of assumptions, save and except for the reduction of the non-recoverable expense rate from 5% to 0. As you can see, and I need not skip back, but I'll state as you're looking at page 14, the capitalization rate using the full 5% non-recoverable on page 13 is 7.38%. On page 14, the very same valuation assumptions and the very same purchase price, if you take out the 5%, the indicated cap rate is 7.79%. So it's an increase mathematically of fully 40 basis points. Then on page 15, the final scenario, and this is what actually more applicable to what we're seeing in this cycle, in that the department has actually changed the non-recoverable expense allowance to 1%. So not the 5% we're requesting, but they're using the 1% plus the quote unquote other expense of 2%. If you use the 1% as a non-recoverable expense allowance and keep all the other assumptions the same, the indicated cap rate is 7.71%. That is still, that is 33 basis points higher than the indicated rate if you include the full 5%. So 33 basis points conceptually for the board is the number, give or take, and it depends, it varies a little bit depending on the assumptions you use, but it's in the range of 29 to 33 basis points. So if the board, and this obviously, the board is certainly entitled to make any decision it prefers to on the non-recoverable expense item, but my suggestion, Mr. Chairman, very clearly is you can't do that in isolation, because our capitalization rate analysis assumes the 5%, and therefore my suggestion is going to be, if the board chooses to reduce the non-recoverable to 1%, at a minimum, and you'll see this in our materials, at a minimum, our cap rate request goes up by 25 basis points, notwithstanding that the mathematical difference is closer to 30 or 31. That all of the, and again, the board's familiar with it, Ms. Tenor, I'm sure is quite sick of it. There's all the information that we've got relating to our analysis is in the pages attached. So that's non-recoverable. So now, if I might ask the board and Ms. Tenor to go to the capitalization rate study. Again, this is our retail cap study, and I'm going to go through, I'm not going to go through every page in detail. There's just simply, it wouldn't be time efficient, and I don't think it would add a whole lot, but I do want to bring to the board's attention sort of the progression from pre-pandemic conditions to the reference date in this case. So if I start at page 5, and what we should have at the top of page 5 is a title called Investor Expectations in the Retail Economic Climate Pre-Pandemic. And one of Canada's leading retail investors, this is now in the second paragraph, was RioCan, and it wasn't his RioCan. And RioCan had made the decision to actually divest itself of a number of retail properties. And this is now in the indented paragraphs. The recently announced sale of 100 properties by RioCan, Canada's largest retail REIT, suggests that retail as an asset class is losing steam. If guidance, and this is now second paragraph, if guidance for the future of retail in Canada is to be taken from this change in direction, it may be that retail as an asset class is a questionable focus, given RioCan's move towards a more diversified portfolio. That sort of perspective on the retail climate, and this is all pre-pandemic, was certainly very telling. Towards the bottom of page 5, there was an article by Bloomberg, and they state that reeling from a shaky holiday season and slowing mall traffic, and this is in January 17, U.S. retailers are facing increasing pressure to close stores as more of their business migrates to the internet. A common theme that we're seeing, and a theme certainly the outlook that accelerated hugely during the pandemic was the shift from in-store shopping to online shopping. And they actually talk about that in this article. On top of page 6, this is from the same article. This Tim Wang, who was the head of investment research at Clarion, when he's talking about retail, he said, "I'm sorry to say that if you look at the picture for overall retail, it's not good at all. Brick and mortar retailers may be at a watershed moment as plunging model share and store traffic force fundamental changes to a 100-year model. That 100-year model, indeed, based on the in-store shopping experience, has, and during this period, and certainly through the pandemic, fundamentally shifted again towards the online shopping model." One thing I want to talk about, this property is, of course, a big box retail, and the pages 6 to 7, there was a very interesting article relating to mid-box units, and this is from a local brokerage firm relating to the Winnipeg market. And it says, and I'm now at the bottom of page 6, for more than a decade, big box and mid-box stores have been springing up around the city as part of a new wave of retail. But now at least half a dozen of these mid-box, which is 20 to 50,000 square feet, outlets sit empty on major thoroughfares such as Pembina, Regent, and St. James. Most are victims of corporate restructuring and retail trends, and landlords and real estate agents are finding it a challenge. Last sentence in the second paragraph, with the rising popularity of online shopping, the growing trend now is towards smaller brick and mortar stores. Again, what you'll see in my comments through when the pandemic hit, that trend certainly accelerated. Then I'm going to go to page 8, please, roughly halfway down. This commentary relates to the pandemic and the impacts of the pandemic that were evident by the reference date. And there was an article, and now I'm looking at the 2 paragraphs, indented paragraphs at the bottom of page 8. There was an article from University of Canada West, and it stated the COVID-19 pandemic has changed how we buy things. With so many people staying home and most brick and mortar stores closed, of course, because of the mandated closures that were very, very frequent and in many cases fairly lengthy during this time, we've been shopping less overall. But when we do shop, it's been increasingly from our computers, tablets, and phones. In March of 2020, the most recent month with available information, Canadian retail e-commerce sales totaled 2.2 billion, up 40%, 40.4%. That was despite an overall 10% drop in retail sales generally. So you've got this trend where online sales are shooting up, retail sales as a whole are going down, which of course is logically leading to the conclusion that the online business model is being further accelerated because of the conditions that were necessitated by the pandemic. Page 9, there's a chart there that talks, this is just reinforcing the concept, talks about doing more at home as far as shopping online, whether you're going out or ordering in food and such, and that chart on page 9 is actually very informative. Now, this same study, the chart that talked about this study, and I'm now at the bottom of page 9, says buying habits have dramatically changed since the pandemic began. 85% of Canadians say that their shopping behavior has been affected by COVID, while 50% report they are now making online purchases for typical in-store items. Most importantly, 53% of North Americans say they have changed the way they will shop going forward. And that's key because, of course, you've got all this, you've got a fundamental shift in behavior that initially was necessitated by the pandemic. And then as people got more comfortable with it, they discovered, as this study is talking about, they discovered that this is a lot more convenient. I can get it delivered to my house, and it's something that's going to be with us to stay. This isn't a temporary thing that's going to end when the pandemic is over. And again, in the interest of time, there's a lot of good stuff on, pardon me, pages 10 to 11. It's reinforcing these very same concepts. On pages 12 and 13, this is an article from PwC that talks about some of the difficulties in the retail industry that were evident. And on page 13, the prospects for commercial and multifamily sectors. As you can see, this is a sector that is got a number of different categories, retail being either at the fair or abysmal range. Then turning to page 14. And this is a report by the Retail Insider, one of the leading publications for this retail real estate market industry. And the first indented paragraph, retail business had not been going so well prior to the coronavirus crisis, but following its trail in 2020, we can see it left a devastation behind, with many chains shuttering and closing their doors. As the new year, as we go into 2021, seems to be bringing in a lot more of the same. The hope is that retailers have prepared better now that they know and understand the situation. And the headline there underneath that initial opening, no online store, pardon me, no revenues. And again, the paragraphs following talk about this acceleration of the online trend. So I'll just read a couple of sentences. The retailers that relied solely on sales in stores were rapidly failing. When it all started, everyone was hoping that it would simply come and go. But when the reality hit that this was here to stay for a while, and I suggest it's here to stay permanently, those who believed they would weather it through their savings found themselves with nothing left to weather the second wave. So on top of page 15, and this is all coming from the same article, despite the upbeat outlook for some retailers, between 160,000 and 225,000 small businesses could permanently close because of COVID-19. So the retail devastation was certainly prominent. And at the bottom of page 15, last three paragraphs, retailers are not the only ones compelled to adapt to the different business model. Consumers have too. Those who had never shopped online have suddenly been thrust into an unfamiliar digital environment and forced to learn. They're all of a sudden saying, oh boy, I need to be able to figure out how to do this. And I think that's what's really going on to change people's behaviors, said Hutchison, the quote coming from. A survey her firm conducted over the summer, which would be the summer of 2020, found that the majority of respondents said they would continue the same shopping patterns in the future. A transformation in the retail industry has been happening slowly over the past several years, but the pandemic accelerated the sea change. It was moving slowly before, Hutchinson said. We were starting to see, bits and pieces, and it's really just accelerated at warp speed during the pandemic. That is certainly part of the retail trends. So in all of this sort of, with this as backdrop then, Altus Group completed a couple of in-depth surveys of the leading real estate participants in a variety of markets, retail obviously being one of them. And on pages 18 and 19 specifically, they asked if there's, and I should give the board some basic framework. There was two surveys that were done. One that was done sort of in the middle of 2020 and another one of the same participants towards the end of the year. And a couple of questions as shown on the charts in pages 18 and 19. They asked these very, very sophisticated top investors what their outlook was with respect to cap rates. And at the bottom of page 18, the retail top quality, they indicated that they expected the November bar, and I'm at the middle of that chart, if you see the bar graphs there. In November, which is the darker shaded bar graph, well over half expected a cap rate increase of between 25 to 50%. It was lower in June, but it was still over 40%. Some expected a higher, between 50 and 75, or maybe in some cases 75 to 100. Some expected lower, but the overwhelming majority expected somewhere between 25 to 50, which was most of them, or the majority in November. And then another significant segment said between 50 and 75. So that's the retail top quality. On top of page 19, for the retail lower quality, it was certainly an even more pessimistic outlook, where they expected cap rates to increase between 25 and 50 points for roughly 40% of the respondents. Another 30% said between 50 and 75. So predictably, they expected that cap rates would increase even further for the lower quality properties. So now I'm going to then, I'll leave the rest for the board to consider at its leisure. There's a lot of review. But if I could ask the board members, and just anywhere, please turn to page 24. So this is our capitalization rate study with a variety of properties. I mentioned earlier there were 2 RWC properties, which is how our subject has been coded. Those are indices 7 and 9. Now you'll see there, as I had alluded to, that the areas are much smaller, 19,700 feet and 23,300. These are retail warehouse properties, so similar types of properties, much smaller. Recall though, and we certainly share this view, that the municipal board has commented on the higher risk when we talk about the very limited market participants for north of 100,000 feet. And so if anything, these rates would indicate, in our respectful submission, a lower risk than the very largest ones. So it's 6.39, which is index, 6.72, which is index number 7, and 7.39, which is index number 9. We certainly believe that our requested rate of 6.75 is very reasonable. And again, I stress, I'm not going to go through them all, but I do stress that our capitalization rate calculations include the 5% allowance for non-recoverable. If one reduces it, the second column in that chart on page 24, that's the equivalent calculation if one reduces the non-recoverable expense allowance from 5% down to 1%. Again, in the case of these RWC properties, the mathematical impact is to indicate a range of 7.02% up to 7.71. So it does have a very material effect. The information relating to the properties, the short write-ups, and all the information I referred to, including our calculations at the very last pages, starting at page 118, it has the calculations of how our cap rates were derived for these properties. Subject to any questions, those are my comments. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions.
Sorry, can you speak directly into the microphone?
Sorry. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I have a few questions. Mr. Reimer, your page number 11.
We're on the main brief now? We're on the main brief?
Yeah, we are on the main brief. Sorry.
Page 11 was the rent chart, correct?
Yes, the rent chart.
Yep.
It's showing average is $12.76. Using, I think you average using all the rents in here.
I'm sorry?
You average these rents using everything, not only.
Well, no, I'm not suggesting the average, Mr. Meyer. If you
Okay,
recall,
no, I just asking.
Yeah, no,
That's what.
that could be the average. I'm focusing on the indices number 17 through 26 being the largest retail.
Okay, sure. And your $12 based on that larger retail warehouses?
Yes. Yeah.
Do you believe page either number 22 or number 24 would be the best comparable for those ones as built, because both the Nora and the lows?
Certainly. So don't forget, Ms. Tinawara, we had concerns with index number 24. That's one of the rooms that was subject to the sale leaseback. So we've included it,
Yeah.
but because of the nature of that transaction, the 1288 typically in a sale leaseback, the reason it's not used is, and this was alluded to earlier, is that it's a method for the vendor to be pulling out of the money to invest in their business, and it's more of a financing arrangement than a true real estate deal. But we've kept the indicator in. Again, the 1288 in the context of that sale leaseback, certainly that doesn't in any way, in my respect and submission, take away from the $12 request in this case. The other index, sorry, which one was the other one?
The Rona.
On McGilvery?
Yeah, it's Rona and McGilvery. It's $14.65.
Sure, and that's also, so those two were part of that sale leaseback, right?
Yeah, no, mainly I focus on the way it builds because the Canadian Tire is St. James. It's the lower ceiling rather than compared to that's why I point out.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, but again, the caution I gave and the reason I'm not.
No, I understand that.
It's the sale leaseback arrangement that typically will result in very different numbers because it's a situation where the owner is wanting to pull his money out to invest in the business and will typically result in prices that seem elevated relative to transactions that are not sale leasebacks, which is why they're not.
This is the general question. When you do the presentation on cap rate study,
yes,
you were talking about the pandemic effect and how it's people's trend to buy online things and goods. Do you think it's still possible to people's Home Depot is a kind of unique retailer. The way
don't agree with that. I don't think they're unique.
No. The people want to buy things. Do you still purchase online for the like Home Depot type store?
Absolutely.
Do you think
folks will absolutely be buying from Home Depot online in the same way. I'm not saying there's no in-store traffic. Obviously there is. I've been there several times over the past 6 months. But I am suggesting that the shift to online shopping, none of these big box stores are immune to it. And in fact, all of these big box stores, grocery stores included, have moved their business model to facilitate online shopping.
Oh, yeah,
it's cheaper for them. So I'd suggest Ms. Tenware.
People like to go there, and I saw the big lineups on the family. That's why I asked.
Yeah, no, but I'd suggest the online business model has equal application to these types of operations as to the ones that are in the big box category.
Okay.
I am not suggesting that the stores are going to be empty. That's not the case. I am suggesting there's a fundamental change that's going to be long-term in favor of the online model. It's very, for many things.
Then another general question. When you do the presentation of cap rate study, based on the page 18, it's not based on page 18 that time. You can kind of make a statement, higher cap rate for the lower quality retailers. Do you believe it's this location is the lower quality?
Oh no, sorry. Perhaps I miscommunicated that, Ms. Chinwara. Page 18.
It's a general comment.
No, I don't. I'd like the opportunity to answer that because this is important. Mr. Chairman, if I could ask the board members and Ms. Tenwara to turn to page 18. Don't forget, Ms. Tenwara, that there was two different asset classes. One's in very broad terms, retail higher quality, and then the second is retail lower quality. But don't forget the chart on the bottom of page 18. This is retail top quality, and the retail top quality, the majority, between roughly 55%. In retail top quality, we're saying the expected cap rates to increase between 25 and 50 basis points. That's for top quality. If you look on the next page for the retail lower quality, roughly 42% thought it would be going between 25 and 50 basis points, but over 33% thought that retail lower quality would go up between 50 and 75. I am not suggesting this is retail low quality. I'm not asking for a 50 or 75 basis point change or assumption. But I absolutely am suggesting that on the bottom of page 18, when these investors are saying retail top quality is going up between 25 and 50 basis points, that's very valid for this property as a better quality retail.
That's all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Mann, any questions?
I do with respect to a couple of areas. First of all, your chart found at page 13, it is, of your the applicant's materials. And that's the large retail rent per square foot linear regression
Oh, the
line.
regression line, yes,
Yes.
indeed, yeah.
And I'm just looking at the rent per square foot, the dots that have been placed there. Are those dots an example of all those rents available to you at these 40, 60, 80 and progressing up to 160,000 square feet? Or have those been culled, for want of a better word, to take out the owner occupied or the sale and leaseback?
The sale leasebacks will be in, so in this chart, and need not turn the page, but if you go to page 11, those dots will represent this chart. They should represent the data points based on this chart.
And some of those data points do include the sale and leasebacks.
They include their own, yes, absolutely right, they do.
And it would not include the owner occupied because that wouldn't be
No, there's no rent, exactly, there's no rents to plot on there.
Right, okay, which leads to my next question relating to the unrecovered expenses
Yes,
aspect.
yes.
The unrecovered expense report that you prepared is, and thank you for that, spent a lot of time reading various iterations of it, or the iteration of it. I have one question here with respect to the methodology and the determination of the non-recoverable expenses. The non-recoverable expenses are outlined in various places. They include the leasing commissions, the advertising, the marketing, the tenant inducements, free rents.
Not TIs in our analysis, but yeah,
Okay.
that's part, yeah, I agree.
Legal and audit,
Yes,
for example,
yes,
as
yes,
well.
yes.
And while legal and audit may form some of the non-recoverable expenses for owner-occupied buildings almost operate in a separate class for non-recoverable expenses, do they not?
So, Mr. Van, your question is a very, very good one. Here's my response though, because don't forget, this is fundamental to the entire approach.
Mm-hmm.
We are valuing property as of the reference date based on what the most prudent, or I should say the most probable sale price. Okay, that's step one. What would it sell for? But this is fundamental to your question, and the reason I say it's very good is this is a question I've had a couple of times in the past, and it's key to understanding from our perspective what's going on. We're completing a fee simple valuation because, of course, if you look at the subject, there's no rent. You couldn't do a value based on this approach. It's owner occupied. The reason we're applying the income approach is these properties will typically trade as investment properties, which by necessity means I've got to rent, I've got to provide for a vacancy loss, I've got to do all of these things as part of my investment. And fundamentally, one of those things is the non-recoverable. In the same way that if you're going to value it saying, well, it's just owner occupied, well, you can't do an income approach at all. But what the municipal board has said, and certainly the method that we've adopted is we're doing a fee simple valuation based on what an investor would pay for this property, and the investor's assumptions in this fee simple valuation include all of these things. What kind of rent can I get? What do I need to provide for vacancy? What rate of return that overall capitalization rate do I want? And within that, 5% or a non-recoverable expense allowance is fundamental to it. If you start to look at, well, okay, but owner-occupied properties they don't have any. That's factually correct, but that's then now you're completely outside of a fee simple valuation. Now you're valuing it as if it's owner occupied for one purpose, which is the non-recoverable expense, and yet we're applying the market rent. We're doing all these things as if it was an investment property. That's two fundamentally different calculations. So your point is very well taken, but that concept of owner occupant and value and use as the owner occupant, it's simply irrelevant for the purposes of the valuation we're completing based on a fee simple analysis as of the reference. You have to, if you're going to try and value and use to that owner, then you are actually probably going back down to what's the depreciated cost, what are some of the other methods to value it aside from the income approach. But that's not the methodology we're using.
No, you're using the income approach, and I understand that. That leads me to my next question about the sale and leaseback. If there's a sale and leaseback, is that not going to affect the non-recoverable expenses? Because a prudent investor is going to look at the guarantee on the sale and leaseback. good purchaser, I guess, investor is going to look at those aspects and not be assuming those costs.
They will certainly, so two different questions there. When you look at, you look at the sort of the guarantees involved in the sale leaseback, that's going to directly impact the risk that you perceive and therefore the cap rate. Because if I think this tenant's I think that either they're going to go bankrupt or there's a good chance they're going to want to shutter some stores in a couple of years. Well, now my rate of return has to go up. If I'm looking though at a situation where it's a sale leaseback with respect to the 5% non-recoverable, again, that they may will assume in their specific business model on the sale leaseback there are going to be virtually no non-recoverables. But that again, that's part of why sale leasebacks are so difficult, because they're an investor that would, I've actually got a good example. We had a sale leaseback transaction involving a property that I'm familiar with, happened circa 2012. That transaction we in no way referenced, but then that property was subsequently sold using what amounted to, in my respectful opinion, an inflated rent. It's sold again. But this new investor now is not going to make the same assumptions, and this is now a transaction that is not a sale leaseback. They are going to say, well, I've got 3 years left in the lease, and either it's going to go vacant or I've got to lease it up or I've got to get a renewal. And now again, you're back into the world of there's going to be non-recoverable expenses that are going to be incurred. So sale leasebacks are, and your point, Mr. Mann, is well taken. That's in a sale leaseback like this, the purchaser in that transaction may make different valuation assumptions, top to bottom. Well, not top because they know the rent they're going to get, but in terms of the vacancy, in terms of these non-recoverables, in terms of the cap rate. But fundamentally, our fee simple valuation has to account for these typical expenses that are going to come up, not referencing the sale leasebacks. And those expenses are demonstrably in that 5% range. The sale leaseback, they may say, we're going to have some replacement reserve. We're going to call that 2% and call it at 8. Okay, that's all well and good. That's not a fee simple valuation for our purposes.
Thank you.
Well, good question.
That's it?
That's it. Sorry, those are my questions.
That's fine. Thank you for the questions, the answers.
They were helpful.
Okay, Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
I don't need to. Okay, so thank you, and so that completes the evidence then of the applicant, and Ms. Tanawara, you can go ahead with the assessment of evidence.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Property address 1590 Region Avenue West. Property owned by Home Depot Holdings Inc. Property operate as a Home Depot. This property built in 2000 and wall height is 26 feet. Plan area is 114,612 square feet. You can see the pictures in page number 3. And my page number 3 is the rent comparables, and we both, Mr. Raima and me, use mostly same rent comparables. My lowest rent is $10.53, which is 1065 St. James Street. It's a brick warehouse lease, and the highest lease is the Canadian Tire lease, $17.50 lease. Today I'm using $12.50 model driven market rents for this property. And you see model parameters. My model parameters include the 6.45 cap rate for those retail warehouses. This property original valuation went significantly lower than last cycle valuation.
Chairman, I'm objecting to the evidence relating to the assessments. I mean, if it's relevant, I can speak to it, but I'm not sure that without further evidence as to the previous assessment and how it's calculated, I'm not comfortable with the submission of that.
Well, we don't take comparative assessments
Thank
into
you.
account anyway.
Thank you.
I'm asking to confirm the valuation as $20,221,000. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Reimer, any questions?
Thanks, Ms. Chairman. So, Ms. Tanawara, page 4 of your materials, this is the valuation.
Yeah.
So are these from top to bottom, rent down to cap rate, are these all model driven parameters?
All model
They're all
nothing
in-
touched.
All model driven, including the rent, in this case, okay. Now, with respect to then the capitalization rate of 6.45%, there's no, the department hasn't provided you with any capitalization rate information to for the board or me to understand how 6.45%, what transactions form the basis of that number, correct?
The only thing, Power Center and Norfolk Shopping Center, percentage, 20th percentile and 80th percentile is between 6.35 to 6.95. In my page number, it's a capitalization rate chart. That's all, nothing, we don't provide anything very specifically for the
Okay.
retail warehouse.
So we don't know, for instance, how many RWC.
No.
Okay, so we have no information on that. No. And actually.
We don't provide anything because it's all into the model.
Understand. And so, well, we can agree then with the range being from, for this category generally with the monitoring rates of 6.35 to 6.95.
Yes, that's right.
I've
Yeah.
requested 6.75, so that's certainly well within that range as well, correct?
Yes, I agree, but this is the better one. That's why it has a lower cap rate than because I'm proposing today also 6.8 cap rate because it's within the range. But considering about the location, quality, and all other factors, this retail warehouse 6.45. The some retail warehouse you will see 6.85, 6.7. It's a range, anything between. So many other factors.
Yeah, no, I agree, but we can agree
we
then.
both in the limit, but I'm in the lower end. You are in the higher end. That's all I can see.
Right, but perhaps, Ms. Trina, if you recall, Ms. Tenuera,
That's
I
okay.
keep smashing your names together. I hope.
That's
Ms. Tenuera, if you recall my previous comments on municipal board order talking about the higher risk because of the limited participants, that's certainly based on the range that you provided, which starts at 6.35, and the board's comments about sort of in that case the 50% basis point, that would tend to support something at the higher end of that indicated range for these very large centers, correct? Using the board's methodology.
Yes and no, because we have so many other factors to come up with the 6.45. But I totally agree one thing, because your cap rate and my cap rate within the range. But there are many other things involved that cap rate too.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions.
Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Mann, do you have any questions?
Just a point of clarification. At one point in your answers to Mr. Reimer, I thought you said that you were agreeing with the 6.8% cap rate.
No, I mean about the cap rate chart.
Okay.
We are having we have 6.35 cap rate. It's the lowest. 6.95 is the highest, because even the today presentation, you might see my cap rates are between 6.35 to 6.85, because the reason for those kind of fluctuation, not because of even though it's all categorized as the retail warehouse, so many other factors like size, location, quality, and all the other things play the role to come up with the cap rate. Then it is really hard to compare one cap rate to other cap rate, because that's what I answer, because both cap rates within the range, but there are other reasons to be this cap rate to be lower than other retail warehouse. Because
So the cap rate that you are asking us to accept is 6.45%.
yes, for this property.
For
But
this property.
it doesn't matter. Some properties has a 6.5 cap rate. It's
Right.
really hard to compare me to tell about, because being a retail warehouse, it should be one cap rate. No such a thing.
Right.
It should be range.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yes, I also thought I heard you say 6.8, but you clear about that, so I have no other questions. So thank you very much, and we can now then,
Mr. Chairman, could I just summarize briefly?
if you need summation, absolutely.
It'll be very quick.
Go ahead.
Could I ask, Mr. Chairman, if I could ask the board members and Ms. Tenuera to have it'll be page 6, which is the capitalization rate chart, open as just briefly summarize.
On your presentation or her?
On Ms. Tenuera's, page 6.
Okay.
It's in the middle of the page was a cap rate chart, and it refers to what Ms. Tenawara had alluded to. I've concluded based on sort of the progression, as you can probably tell, I suggested the rents, we're not that far off on rent. The bigger issues are non-recoverable and cap, which are linked, inextricably linked. Now, if you look at Power Center, Neighborhood Center, 635 to 695, certainly what the municipal board has been very clear, they've been agreeing because of the limited market, you've got to put a premium on these very large stores, which are, in the 100,000 square foot range. So I'd suggest, the reason for my question, Mr. Chairman, following the municipal board's sort of guidance and logic on it, I'd suggest actually that the premium would result in something that's in that 675 range using our calculations, just based on the data and the municipal board's guidance that they provided, but based on the data provided by the assessment department. So one other thing I'd like to point out, that the board members can get either their pens, I'm still using pen and paper, but I do want to offer this to the board for their consideration. Page, need not turn to it. The assessor's NOI is 1,304,285. That's, if you recall, based on a slightly higher market rent at 1250 instead of 12. Also based on a non-recoverable allowance of 1% instead of 5. Using all of the logic that I've talked about, if you take out or reduce the non-recoverable to 1%, directly impacts our cap rate submission and our cap rate calculations. RWC cap rates for the two transactions we've presented to this board then both go north of 7%. If this board, and I offer this as a suggestion, if this board were to accept the assessor's NOI of 1,304,285, which we don't, but if we're inclined to do it, and then making the proper adjustment to our own cap rate submission, bumping it by the minimum 25 points, that would then of course lead to the conclusion of the cap rate suggestion, not 675, which I believe is very fair, but 7. If you cap the assessor's NOI at 7%, the indicated value is 18,633,000. And I'd suggest, based on all of the evidence, including the assessor's chart, our detailed capitalization rate evidence with the two RWCs, and the interplay between non-recoverable and the cap rate, that number stands to reason from my perspective as well. So I'll leave that with the board to consider. The request is 17,750,000. If the board were to make those adjustments and adjust the cap rate suggestion, it's on 18.6 in that mark. Thank you.
Sorry, speak into the mic again.
It has the effect of changing the using the 7% adjusted capitalization rate based on using just 1%, using the assessor's NOI essentially. The indicated value, the precise indicated value is 18,633,000.
Okay.
And that's using all the adjustments I've done.
And the 7% cap rate and the city's NOI.
Exactly. Thank you.
Great. Thank you.
Ms. Tenawara, do you want to say?
It's a small summation. We believe model parameters are fair and equitable. So I'm asking you.
Sorry, please speak into the microphone.
I believe, we believe model parameters and rents are fair and equitable. Then I'm asking to confirm the value as it is. Thank you, madam.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That completes this matter now, and we then have we now have 775 Hannah Road. Okay,
Thank
Ms.
you.
Tenawara,
madam.
you can go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. 775 Planet Road. Today I'm making a recommendation to reduce value to 20,853,000.
You please say that again. I'm sorry. Yeah. The amount again, please.
Okay, 20 million.
Yes.
853,000.
Okay. Thank you.
We are in agreement to the value.
And I do agree.
Okay, if you'll just take us through how that was formulated.
It's when the original model characteristics I have to be corrected. When I correct the model, I got the new sets of rent. That means rental adjustment, and cap rate is 6.5. All the model parameters apply. The final conclusion is rent adjustment based on the correction.
Sorry, speak into the microphone. The cap rate was what?
All the model parameters are same. Cap rate, management, and vacancy, and everything stay the same. The change is the rental rate.
The rental rate, okay. Okay, thank you.
Any questions, Mr. Mann?
No, I don't, thank you.
Okay, thank you. And I'm satisfied too, so thank you. Yeah, this is the last matter that we have today, which is the property at 880 Nairn Avenue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Property address 880 Nairn Avenue. Property owner TDG Furniture Inc. And this property has the two used as a furniture warehouse. The smaller building, it is a plan area is 19,085 square feet. Wall height is smaller. It's a 14 feet to 16 feet height building, and built in 1964. We use the effective age as 1971. You can see pictures in page number 2 and 3. And also I have included my rent comparables in page number 3. Those rent comparables are smaller size buildings. Its smallest building size is 850,000, and the highest is 39,000 square feet. You can see those rental rates vary from $11 to $12.88. All of the rent comparables are similar type of use, somewhat retail warehouse, but not truly retail warehouse like the previous properties we discussed. Model rent was $11.68. All the model parameters apply. Vacancy rate of 4%, expenses 3%, shortfall of $6.50, cap rate of 6.7%. Final value is $3,024,000. Today I'm asking to confirm the original value as it is. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. So, Reimer, any questions?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Can I initially ask that all discussions, questions, comments on the non-recoverable and cap it except for something else on the board? Here, have that carried forward.
I mean, recall all the things you indicated.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, if we could turn to page 3 then, Ms. Tanawara, with your rent comparables. So, as I look through these, I believe only the second last rent comparable is in the area of the subject. This is at 1487 region. The rest of them are in different parts of the city, St. James.
Yeah,
okay.
I try to use the similar type of use. That's why I know show the within the city limit. It's kind of range around 11 to 12. That's what I try to do.
Sure,
yeah.
Sure. But the only one again in the area, sort of this Transcona area, is 1487 region of the comps. We can agree on that.
Yes. Yes,
And
that's $88.09. Sorry, $12.88.
Now, but that's a 1998 lease, correct?
That's a 1998 lease. It's
Okay.
an older lease.
And our reference date is April of 2021.
Yes.
Okay. So then the only other question, as far looking at the dates briefly and looking at the size, if we look at comparable number 1, which is on Stafford.
Yeah.
This is the Giant Tiger. That was a lease entered into in November of 17 for an building area that was very, very similar to the subject, correct?
Yeah.
And that's at $11.
Yeah. Agreed.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. Those are my questions.
Is there any questions?
I do not.
Mr. Mann, any questions?
No, I have no questions. Thank you.
And I don't either, so, Mr. Reimer, you can go ahead.
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. The debate is on 3 issues: market rent, non-recoverable, and cap rate. I have nothing to say more on non-recoverable You're welcome. And, and, on market rent though, if I could ask the board members and Ms. Tenora, please to turn to page 13. Recall that, my question to Ms. Tenora related to the geography of the rent comparables. We've presented 4. They're in the, very close to the area on Transcona. One's on Nairn, very, very close, in fact, to the subject. 14,517 feet under a January 19 lease at 1150. And then the 3 on Regent, again, very similar sizes, very good locations, obviously on Regent, and they range from 10 to 10 and a quarter square foot with an average of 1050 and a median of 10 and a quarter. We're certainly suggesting, based on this property with the 19,000 feet, which is closer to the comps 3 and 4 in terms of size, also close to comp 2, substantially bigger, 20% bigger than comp on Nairn. We're suggesting 1050 a foot in this case. So then with the market rent issue presented, if we could turn to page 14. And so the suggestion we have is based upon the market rent of 1050 a foot, using the parameters as shown there, 4% vacancy, the 5% non-recoverable, shortfall and other are agreed, and then the 7% cap. Then we come in at a value of $2,485,000. And on the retail cap, the only reference I do want to make, and the board, if the board would like to turn to that page, they can, or they can just again have a pen handy. It's the chart on page 24 of my retail cap study. And if you recall, Mr. Chairman, there's 2 RWC properties that were included in our capitalization rate analysis. They're indices 7 and 9. And based upon the inclusion, I should say, of the 5% management, the cap range for those properties was from a low of 672 to a high of 739. So given the characteristics of the subject, it's an older building, original age, and as the certainly the location on there, it's not the same location when you're turning off Lage going west, but it's not a terrible location either. But certainly, we believe the 7% is consistent with our own data, and we're asking the board to apply that rate this morning, and asking for the value of $2,045,000. Thank you.
Ms. Tenora, any questions?
Very few questions. Mr. Reimer, you are
Sorry, speak to the mic.
sorry, Mr. Reimer, page number 13.
Of the main submission, right?
Yes, on the main section.
Yeah.
You don't mind telling me about what type of views on those comparables? Those
Type
are,
of use?
yeah,
They're all retail. I can tell you.
It's a retail or retail warehouse?
Well, it's actually a combination. So the first one is a retail wholesale shop, Uncle Wiener's Wholesale, on there. The second is a Mission thrift store, so it's again retail. The third is Staples, again retail warehouse, which is probably from a use perspective closest to ours, and that's at 10 and a quarter. The last one though is a theater, so that's got less relevance.
Okay, last one is the theater. Okay, and page number 14.
Yes.
This is about the cap rate. I think you and me are in this kind of range of cap rates. We use the 6.7% cap rate. You use the 7% cap rate.
Yes.
Then, and this case also, we are within the range, but you are in the higher end and the lower end. Do you agree?
Actually, I don't have any information as to how the department calculated its ranges,
Yes.
and so my suggestion is our own 2 specific RWC transactions were between 6.72 and 7.39. So I'm definitely sort of in the middle of that range, 7%.
Okay.
Exactly right. Yeah.
That's all my question, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Sir, Matt,
No, I don't, thank you.
Ms. Knight, do you have any questions?
I do not.
And I don't either. So thank you very much, both of you, for your first of all cooperation made this morning. Only last till minutes as well. We're not going to ship it, you guys are. And thank you for your eloquent presentations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Have a good day, all. Have a good day, Ms. Knight.